and welcome to another amazing day at fmtraining.tv, where we're here to talk about the wonderful, fantastic, and amazing FileMaker platform. My name is Margaret. I am here today with the wonderful Kristian Olsen. He is here to discuss more Wolfpack. He's done some amazing updates now. It is officially available, and you can go download the new Wolfpack from its shiny link. You through the website, and then if you still have the email, you should still have the link, correct, Kristian? Like, if you still have the original email, the download link for that should still work. I'll just give you an updated version. So.
Sure. Yeah.
So, again.
You'll know when you download if it has or doesn't have these add-ons.
Well, we'll see if it goes. Real quick, I'm going to talk about our wonderful. We're going to work today. Now we're working. I'm going to talk about our wonderful training schedule. So, today we have Wolfpack, tomorrow we have Wolf Toolbox, which Kristian is very excited to show everyone, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely ready for tomorrow's presentation.
And then we also, Friday, we ended up bumping the wonderful Kyle Williams to talk about the Log4j 0-day vulnerability that kind of blew up the internet last week. It is a security issue we should discuss. So, I think Claris's official word on it is roughly that 19 is safe and not much else. But beyond that, we will talk more about it Friday. Monday is more Execute SQL for advanced FileMaker developers. Basically, Kyle returns. So to discuss his wonderful, all the wonderful things that you can do with Execute SQL, which will be very interesting. Tuesday is going to be modular scripts for searches in FileMaker with Calvin. And Wednesday, Nick is back, hopefully without any power problems. So, barring that, real quick, let me discuss something that we are doing come January. We are doing the certification training, the special high-intensity training for the FileMaker certification. Basically, a lot of developers have big FileMaker goals to go get certified. 62% is a pass, which should tell you how hard the test is. It is not an easy test. It is not easy to do. People try, people fail. It's kind of expensive to keep trying because I believe, how much do you pay to do the test every time?
150.
Yeah, okay. It definitely
adds up.
smacks your wallet when you fail. So basically, Richard's like, we get a lot of requests. Richard's like, you know what, we're going to do the special high-intensity training for FileMaker certification. Basically, we are going to cover a lot of series of topics on pretty much, hopefully, everything you'll need to pass certification test. Richard's goal is to get people to pass certification test after taking this, to cover all the little gaps in your FileMaker knowledge. For example, FileMaker server knowledge. A lot of developers don't spin up their own servers, or they do or they don't, and so there's a lot of flex between how do you know about ODBC? Do you know about server? Do you know about WebDirect? Do you know about Go? Do you know everything there is to know? Probably not. So we're here to tell you what gaps you can study to add to your current knowledge for the test. There are two options to buy it. We have one with the recommended option, which is the bundle. If you have our full and complete bundle of wonder and joy, with all of our 100+ hours of video training, it comes with it. So if you have renewed that recently, or you are still I believe if either you renewed it or you're still in it, you get this. We highly recommend that you do that. Not only do you get the certification training, you get everything else we've done, which is not inconsiderable. But if you insist, I don't need any of that video training, I don't need to hear Richard talk at me for 100 hours, then we do have option 2, which is where you just buy the training straight. These will be recorded after the fact and added to our certification. I don't believe they may be available separately after the fact, but I will talk with Richard about that. So, again, also, this is the bundle, in case you're wondering. What comes in the bundle? All of this. It's a lot. It is pretty considerable. Basically, the entire FileMaker platform, deploy, Go and WebDirect, live code for FileMaker, lean design, FileMaker for startups and entrepreneurs, user interface. We go into all of it. If you have questions about it, we pretty much talk about it. So feel free to fire.
I'm back.
Hi.
I am back.
Okay. Well, do you want to talk, or am I talking?
I can talk briefly. Did you talk about the award they gave everyone here?
No, I was going to do this. I was getting to the award. I figured you don't want to talk about it yourself, but I wasn't sure you're going to be
Well,
back.
so it's kind of weird, right? So Claris has this relationship with us where they ignore us, but then every once in a while they like talk to us, and then they ignore us and talk to us, and it's kind of this bizarre relationship. So we're on the "we love you right now" temporarily thing. So I want to. They basically gave us the award, RCC FM Training, this channel, the award for best educational platform for the FileMaker community. I think all of you, if you're here, would agree with that. And it's not. It has kind of my name on it, only in so much as that they had to call it something, not turd training or something. It had to have a name on it, and it happens to be my name. But I want to thank everyone for basically, Kyle jumped in, done a lot of the live streams. Christian's done a bunch. Calvin's done a bunch. I can't name everyone. Nick has done a ton. Nick was thrilled as hell yesterday about this award. So big, probably he's our biggest trainer. Him and myself kind of do a lot of it. And so I want to say thank you, but it's all of you that make it possible. The people, frankly, who buy the complete bundle training, they're the ones that keep the lights on. We really appreciate it. And I know we do a lot of free stuff just because, frankly, in a lot of cases, it's better to do it free. There's real good reasons to do it for free, but you can't call the power company and tell them that you're going to pay the bill with goodwill and love from the FileMaker community. So it doesn't work that way. So I want to say thank you to everyone on that. We really appreciate it. Let's talk about a little bit of news here with you real quick. So Friday's a news day. We have updates on that log4j 0-day vulnerability. It looks better than it did previously. Claris has made some statements and done some more testing, but we will bring that up in detail on Friday. Additional news for those of you who have Cloud 2 or you have customers that use Cloud 2. If you don't know the difference between Cloud 1 and Cloud 2, please don't, but there is a thing called Cloud 2. It's been in market for a while. Cloud 1, two things. One, Cloud 1, if you're using Cloud 1, Claris is shutting it off in like 2 or 3 weeks. Like one day you're going to wake up and your databases are going to be gone. Okay. And I've been telling people that. I'm almost to the point of sending certified letters to about 5 customers who won't reply to my email, not because they hate me, but because I guess they think I'm trying to get money out of them or something. They don't owe me any money, but I'm trying to help them. Or maybe they went out of business and they're all dead of COVID. The bodies are rotting in their office. I don't know. But we have, if you're using Cloud 1, Claris is going to literally turn the power switch off on that, and it'll go away. And then one day, if you're using that and you haven't been paying attention to Richard or anyone else screaming at you, your database is going to be gone. Nothing we can do about that. That's why we did the live stream on the emergency Star Trek transporter. And for Moki, conversation yesterday, the Star Trek transporter comes from the stuff from Kristian and other things that happen there. That's that serialization of the code, right? Very cool technology. So that is coming. So Cloud 1 is being shut off. So Claris has been moving everyone to Cloud 2, or you can go to an on-prem, which is what we generally recommend. You pay Jacob, he sets you up an AWS server, and you just runs kind of reliably, and you do checks on it periodically to make sure the backups are running. That's what we recommend. But if you're on Cloud 2, that's software as a service. That means that you went to Claris, you paid the money, you gave them somehow the databases, you press an upload button, and it magically in a way into the cloud, somewhere in the cloud, and it's being hosted for you. So Claris had an outage or some sort of malfunction last night or early this morning, and they sent an email to all their Cloud 2 customers telling them to log on to their AWS console and to unsubscribe and resubscribe and do this other thing. And so if you have a Cloud 1 person who moves to Cloud 2, this will confuse them. If you have a Cloud 2 person, they're going to be pretty much convinced whoever's at Claris is high on crack and drinking on the job. So remember, software as a service, the Claris is doing the hard work, putting the software and the hardware together on a machine, and your customer just interacts with you. So when you send them an email saying, oh, by the way, log on to your AWS account and press these buttons and do this and do that, that's not a real thing. None of these people have a relationship with AWS because they told Claris to handle it for them. Yet Claris do it back at them. We're pretty sure it's a malfunctioning email, but they sent it to all their Cloud 2 customers, or all of them that are on the West Coast or something. It was a big number. So we've been getting on the phone with people going, I don't have this account. I don't know what to do. Is my database is here? So just understand, if you got that email, or you are a consultant and you have customers who use Cloud 2, you're probably, if you haven't been on the phone with them, you're going to be on the phone with them to explain to them that that email from Claris probably should be disregarded. Just saying, right? So it took me, actually, it was such a crazy situation. It took me 5, 6, 8 minutes this morning in a meeting to fully comprehend what Claris had done, right? So it'd be like if you had a car that burns gasoline, and you get a note from Toyota or Honda or someone telling you that you need to go out and drill for oil so you could put gas in your car, and you're like, what the hell? Right? So that's very confusing. So, yep. So, Kristian Olsen, are you there? So that's the hot news for today.
Yes.
Cloud 2 customers are confused. Cloud 1 customers need to migrate and do something else. And the zero-day exploit, it's been a busy news week, right? Never mind any awards or anything. It's been a busy news week, right? And then we'll be doing news on Friday. So any other news, Kristian, you want to throw out hot news before we start wolf-packing it? We're going to pack it.
None that I can think of that's real, you know. We can talk about some fake news. I'm just kidding.
Fake news. Okay, great. That's perfect.
Also, I got to say, too, I'm quite excited about the high-intensity training I mentioned yesterday. This is something that people have been asking RCC about for years. And Margaret, you picked up on this, too, which is, and working here at RCC, I can very much speak to this. I'm fortunate that we have server people. It's very uncommon that I'm going to go set up a server and mess with the backup cycles. And so when it comes to the exam, there's a few different sections where I don't feel very well versed on it because it's not an area in FileMaker that I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So I think this will be great for people who are interested in taking the certification test. And for the $150, one bonus you get now is it's for 2 years instead of 1. So definitely a little bit more worthwhile if you can pass it the first time. We've got Wolfpack X7 being released today, and Kyle Williams is kind enough to share the original link. We'll see if that's still working. You can, of course, go to the website. You can go to Claris's website, and you can check that out. So I want to briefly go over some of the updates to Wolfpack, and then we'll dive into the changes there. Marks, I didn't lose you. Is it just your dad leave the call? I just see him spinning.
No, I'm sure he left. He poofed.
Okay, no worries. Just want to make sure I didn't cut out on us.
No, you're
okay,
good.
So one of the first things I want to go over is in X6, it was really cute. Miles Debsky added a howl for us right before we went live with it, and I do like it as a feature. However, many people pointed out that the consistent howling was annoying. And I experienced this firsthand when I went to try to configure some new add-ons or make changes, and it was driving me bonkers, as much as I like my wolves. So on startup, you will get a wolf howl, and then there's no howls after that. If you guys really miss this feature, let me know. Maybe I'll bring it back, and it'll turn on when you do it. But though it was cute initially, it was really kind of aggravating as a regular thing. So that's a minor fix that we did. In terms of the platform itself, not a lot of changes. However, I did notice that the duplicate add-on button was not duplicating the pre-flight checklist. And I think that this is something that could be helpful, so I went ahead and had that added. If you guys notice any other bugs, please bring them to my attention so that I can have Zane at RCC here fix those for me. He's kind of my right-hand man when it comes to Wolfpack. I also want to give, and I mentioned it yesterday, but I want to give a really big shout-out to Kyle Williams, who contributed 7 new add-ons to this release of Wolfpack. He was going to join me in today's call, but with the amount of time we have, I think it's better that we just give him the dedicated time that we can. So in early January, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to have Kyle come back to show us some of these add-ons. And I've taken a little peek at a few of them, and they look really cool. So thank you, Kyle, for your contribution. We've also got Jake's developer assistant updated with the FM Watson edition. So if you guys recall, FM Watson added the ability to go to a script, to go to a line of code, to find a piece of text, thanks to Kristian at Monkey Bread's Monkey Bread plugin. So we've got that in there. Jake's been a little busy, so we went ahead and added it for him. Still his add-on. But I got to tell you, that specific interaction really just that was the top of the hill, if you will, for me. Wolfpack is something that was a tool for myself because I had a folder of add-ons that was building up. I only had a couple in there, but it was starting to become a bit of a mess. And the other thing that would happen is I'd go show other people these add-ons that I made, and they'd want to know how to install them. In fact, a couple of weeks or months would go by and I couldn't remember how to install them. So that's where the idea of Wolfpack came from. And then the idea of opening it up to the community, expanding our pack, was something that was really cool to me because we could have contributions from Kyle Williams and what's our name, Leon, that's at the very bottom here, Leon Long, and also from Jake Shield. But to see that a developer in the community like FM Watson, who's been around longer than I have, downloaded Wolfpack, found Jake Shield's add-on, and then added contributions to it using Monkey Bread. To me, that is the epitome of what I think this tool can really be. So if you all take different add-ons and you make customizations to them, please submit those back. On that same note, I can't remember if this was in X6 or not, but Calvin, who you guys are all very familiar with, has a Neomorphism 2-tab slide tab. So he took slide tabs and basically just gave it a makeover so that it looks like the Neomorphism theme. I think that might have been an X6. But the other one that he gave us, if I can find it, there we go, downtown 2-tier slides. So this is also slide tabs with a makeover to fit the starting point theme. So what Calvin has been doing, and I absolutely love this, is taking this add-on that I had that was kind of bare bones, and it worked, but it didn't have the styling, and he's painted it for us. In fact, I kept telling Calvin that this was my ambition, and he told me he was waiting until I did it for him. So if Calvin's out there, thank you, Calvin, for stepping up and doing it for me. I'd love you guys all to take all my different add-ons and make them look more beautiful. So I'm really appreciating, I think this came out earlier this year, if I remember correctly. So to see that by X7 we have the community really involved with it, I can't tell you how much I appreciate seeing that, you guys. I've always said from the beginning, I don't know that I'm the best person out there. So to see what everyone else is making, I think is really cool. All right, on that note, I think it was earlier this year that Wolfpack came out and I first started releasing some of the add-ons. Well, as any of you who've been working in the community know, you build something and, maybe 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years later, you look back at something you made and go, here's the things that I need to change about it. Slide tabs in particular, not all of you are going to know it or remember it, so we'll dive into it in a moment. But slide tabs is something that I use with real clients, and one of my clients had a real issue with it. They love it in terms of what the functionality, but they were on a wide area network on an iPad, and they had a bug. And the bug was that when they would go to the layout, the tabs, and when I talk about tabs, I'm going to bring starting point over here for a second. What I'm referring to are the tabs that are at the bottom of the screen here. Note, estimate, invoices, these things right here. And so we're going to get into what virtual tabs is in a moment, if I've been saying the wrong word. But they would get this JSON element. They basically get an error. And virtual tabs does two things for us. Number one, if you've ever had too many tabs on a module, you might have found that they start to get squished together or they all don't fit. And for my client that this came about originally from, they're on an iPad. So the amount of tabs that we could fit is quite limited. And so I thought one day, what'd be really nice is having some arrows to basically increment through additional tabs. The other part that I thought would be really cool is when the count, if you guys are familiar with starting point, we show the number of related records. When that count gets really high, you'll jump into a module and you'll get a summarizing dialogue and it goes slow. This is true for virtually every client that I have that has a vendors and purchase order module, or even just vendors. Because usually the first vendor that they add is the one that has the most products. So as soon as they click on the vendor module, they go to their prime vendor who's got like 500 or 1,500 products, and it starts summarizing that count. So the other thing that virtual tabs did is that every time you went to a record, it would go to PSOS, count all of the things in the tabs, store it in a local cache field, and then it wouldn't even wait for the return, and then it would populate based off of that local field. This seemed like a really cool idea, and on the desktop, it primarily worked, but in deployment with my client, it had a number of issues. Number one, even though it was a PSOS script where you didn't wait for the response, if you mashed the go to next record, go to next record, go to next record, that PSOS of going created a lag time. You couldn't quickly jump between the records. Now, this wasn't much of an issue because they would mostly use a master detail or search for the record they were on. But on the iPad, as it would go and redraw the tabs, that error that they saw was really quite untenable for them. And there were some performance issues. So what I've gone is I've streamlined it and really simplified it. We've lost the feature of it going to PSOS and caching, since that really wasn't necessarily saving us on performance. And I've also made it much, much easier to install. Additionally, it's the first add-on that I've gone through to remake. I'm going to be doing this with all of mine that's using this new framework. And that was something that we discussed a little bit yesterday. So I want to go ahead and jump into what is Virtual Tabs 2, how to install it, and then in doing so, we can talk about this new framework. And of course, if anyone has any questions or wants to chime in on anything, let me know. So how will you do this? Well, if you're new to Wolfpack, I'm going to kind of try to walk through this a little bit from the new, but not 100% go back to everything. But you'll download Wolfpack, you'll find the add-on you're looking for, Virtual Tabs 2. You'll check your box here, and you will install the selected add-on. I'm not going to do that right now because it quits FileMaker, but go ahead and do that. Then what you can do is come back in here, click on your three dots, and go to your pre-flight step-by-step. And this is one of the features in Wolfpack that I just really like as a user, because even though I build these things, I tend to forget how they work. And so you'll notice there's a read me first instructions. This is back on the home page because all of the add-ons have the initial first step, which we're going to gloss over a little bit for today. Actually, we'll get to it in just a second. And then you're going to drag it on screen, and then you're going to move over to step 2. Okay, so I'm going to move this out of the way for now. And we're going to bring up our handy copy of Starting Point, okay? And I prepped a couple copies here to help with this so that we can, so I can make this happen kind of quick. So we're going to jump into accounts. And what I've done in accounts here is I've just moved our tabs off screen. So you guys can all see that. I'm not going to put all the objects back in there. I just wanted to show you the general functionality of the app. So if you've not done an add-on before, you're going to go to your panel on the left, you're going to select add-ons, and you're going to go ahead and find that add-on. I think we glossed over this yesterday. And if you come down here, you'll notice we've got Virtual Tabs version 1.0, and then we've got Virtual Tabs 2.0. So I'm going to go ahead and install that. And this is going to port over, again, if you're not as familiar with the add-on, it's going to port over all of the code that came with that. This is supporting tables, custom functions, scripts, all of that fun stuff, okay? And then what we're going to do is go ahead and just drag this add-on on screen, okay? Boom. And position it approximately where we want it to be, which is right there, kind of. Beautiful, okay? And then I'm going to go back to my pre-flight checklist. And so over here, you'll notice that we need to do some configurations. This is the hardest part of the whole thing, okay? We're going to have to configure a variable, and then we're going to call a couple script triggers. So I'm going to move this out of the way for a moment, but you'll see that we have instructions in here. I'm going to show you what it is that you need to do. So first of all, if you're not familiar with how our tabs themselves work in Starting Point, you might want to take a glance at this. I'm going to kind of operate under the assumption that most of our viewers have some idea of what's going on here, okay? And that is, well, I'll actually glance into it very quickly. We have a calculation in here where we get the count of related records, and then we display either a singular or a plural version of that, and then we do some fancy, make it a certain color, make it a certain height, okay? But what we need to do for virtual tabs is pass this information and this information. We need to configure our tabs. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel here, cancel. I'm going to come back to our target file. And one of the things that I've done to help with this is if you open up your script workspace, and sorry, everybody, that we're in dark mode. I didn't want to try to switch out of dark mode. Yesterday, it turned everything white on white. That's my fault because I've got it configured. So I'm going to try to go slow here and zoom in where needed. Now, after you install the add-on, the very, very bottom of the script workspace, you're going to see a folder for virtual tabs. Let's actually say virtual tabs too. And the first script in here, you actually don't even need it. You can call it as the initial script. We'll talk about all this kind of in a moment. The main thing that I have here is this variable that I want you all to take a look at. Let's close this over here. Okay, and we're going to open that variable up. And you're probably like, oh my God, Kristian, there's so much going on here. This is a little bit overwhelming, but it's not. Okay, so here's what we have going on. First of all, make that a little bigger. This part is technically configurable, and I'm going to come back to what that means in just a moment. But you'll notice visible tabs 4. In fact, I lied. Let's just go talk about that real quick. Okay, so when you put virtual tabs on here, you'll notice that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 visible tabs. Now, if you go back and watch the original virtual tabs video, you can see how to add more of these. It's actually really easy because it's a button bar. And if you look at the logic of these, you'll see that they all call the same function with a number representing the button that they are, with the same script, with a number that increments from 1, 2, 3 over. And then you need to make sure that you have the buttons labeled button underscore and their number. Very similar to how slide tabs works, or if you watch how Nick configures the thing that slide tabs is based off of. Okay, so that's what the 4 represents. So if you add a 5th or a 6th or remove one in your configuration variable, you're going to want to change this number to represent what you have in that module. And these are module specific. Okay, the next part is the hard part. Okay, and I've given you an example here to try to show what this looks like, which is basically we need to have the tab name. Okay, so remember they can be singular or they can be plural. So we have no. The next thing we need to have is the plural version of it, which 90% of the time I found, maybe 90% is a made up number, but more often than not, it's just going to be an S tacked on the end. So rather than making you write it out with the S over and over again, which I've done in Starting Point 100 times over the last several years, I just leave it blank. But then you get a word like delivery where it's not just an S tacked on the end. So you have this option to spell out the plural version of it. And the last thing you need is an ID from the child side. Okay, this can be its primary key. It can be the key from this side, anything that it can more or less count on the other side. And again, if we cancel out of this, hit OK there. We go back to here. This is, if you're not sure what key to use, go and look at FM Starting Point, and you'll notice, in this case, we're using the foreign key. It doesn't matter if you do ID account or ID notes or ID constant, frankly. It's just going to count how many of those records there are. So that's the tricky part that you need. And you don't, again, need to call this script, but you do want to copy this text, and you want to fill one of these out per tab that you want to configure. And so you'll see this is actually from one of my customer files, but they have got all kinds of tabs. They've got notes, they've got contacts, they've got estimates, they've got purchase orders, they've got invoices, deliveries, blah, 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 all kinds of stuff. And you want to put these in a list format. So you'll see that down here. List is trying to show you how to write the first one. This would be your next tab, so on and so forth. And that's it. Don't touch anything else in there. So you'll come here, you'll copy this, okay? I'm gonna say okay. And now we're gonna go back to the file itself, okay? And let's bring over our pre-flight checklist. Our pre-flight checklist is like, hey, here's how you configure the parameters, okay? So that's all the gifs of what's in there. I've tried to make it a little bit simpler. Raise your hand if anybody's confused. Nothing wrong with that. I'm happy to go a little slower and go back over it. The next step is that we need to configure 2 layout script triggers, and just slightly different than each other. Okay, so I'm going to move this back out of the way, and I'm going to come into here, and I'm going to do Command Option S so that I can get access to my little pencil here, so that I can go script triggers. And you'll notice that it's already got one there because I was playing around with this earlier. So I'm going to go to On Layout Enter. Kyle raised his hand. We'll pause in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and Kyle raises his hand. Yeah, I get that now, Ruben. All right, so we're going to go into the script workspace, or not script workspace, or script LAN. And everything in virtual tabs has a prefix of VT to make it easy to find, whether that is a script or a custom function. Okay, and we're going to use the same script for both of these scripts triggers, which is VT slide panel select. This is the script that selects what panel we're supposed to go to. And then we're going to paste that text into the parameter here. Now, I've done this earlier to help save some time, but let's go just take a look real quick. So you'll see, oh, actually, look, it's all broken. So I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to hit OK, and it doesn't like that. So we're just going to hit cancel for a second. And I've got another copy of Starting Point where I've already encoded it to save us some time, because that's probably the most time-consuming part. But I'll show you what's in there. I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to click on the pencil. I'm going to go back to script triggers, back to on layout enter. I'm going to find our VT select one, slide panel select. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to paste this in there, okay? And so I haven't changed the visible number of tabs. We're sticking it at 4. Again, you can go back and you can watch the video on virtual tabs 1 to see how it is that you increment these up to 5 or even reduce them. Down here, just to make it really simple, these may not even match. I've got notes, I've got contact, I've got estimates. I've just made some up, but I am using real related records on the other side. And that's all it is that you need, is really just this section right here. Okay, so this is the hardest part. Okay, I'm going to say all right, and then I'm going to say okay, and then we're going to go to on mode enter. Okay, and why do we do on mode enter? So, again, this whole technique, all these things come from something that Nick added in a solution some time ago. And one of the problems that you might have when you use a button bar and slide panels versus the tab controls, if you enter find mode or layout mode or preview mode and return to browse mode, it takes you back to the first slide. So when you enter the mode, it's going to reevaluate your position and make sure that you're always on the right slide. On layout enter does the same thing. However, on layout enter's script parameter looks to see if those tabs have been configured or not. If they haven't, it actually configures them, which we'll see here. So I'm going to do slide panel select, and I'm going to go edit. I'm going to look for one of our virtual tab custom functions, which is slide selected. Slide selected is the current slide that we are on. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to go to browse, and it should say error. Okay, so this is not a bug, and it messed up. What we need to do is actually leave the layout and come back to it. Okay, so I'm going to leave. I'm going to come back. There we go. And as you would expect, we're going to start on the first tab because that's the thing that makes the most sense. Okay, and then if I click on estimate and I leave and I come back, I'm still on estimate. If I go into find mode and browse mode, I'm still on estimate. Now that might not seem like a lot, but that really is one of the difficult parts in making this work. But that's not virtual tabs, that's slide tabs. It's just the same technique. What's cool about virtual tabs is these buttons right here. So you'll notice that we're currently looking at note over to purchase order, and I can increment to the right. Note goes away. We're now looking at contact. We can see invoices, and we can increment all the way over to work order bundle. Should be showing deliveries. I'm not sure why not. And then we can increment all the way back to note. And then one of the things I think that's just kind of neat about this, if you're on note and you push the right tab over, then you'll see that it actually moves you. Similarly, if I'm on all the way over on work order bundle and I hit left, it's going to push us back over. Okay, so that's pretty neat. The other thing is, if you are familiar with Nick's implementation of this, Nick kind of has a rule, right or wrong, that you only operate in one window. He's got some explanation of that, and you can listen to it, and it makes sense. Nick's not necessarily wrong. However, I like having lots of windows open, and so do my clients. And so we're going to go ahead and open a new window here. Okay, so on this window, we're going to go ahead and put the person on something called a work order bundle. And over here, we're going to do an estimate. Go to find mode, browse mode, estimate, come over here, find mode, browse mode. We're still on the work order. So it keeps track of what tab you're on per window. And someone had asked yesterday, how is this possible? Well, it's done a little bit different in virtual tabs than it was in the solution yesterday. And I'm going to get into that in just a moment. The last thing I want to show you before we jump into how does this work, so I'm going to go ahead and go to contacts real quick. Actually, let's close this window. I'm going to go to contacts over here. I'm going to go to layout mode. I'm going to delete all this stuff off the side of the layout. Boom. Okay. And we're going to drag. I thought I'd already prepped this. Sorry, buddy. You can see why I like to have these things prepped before. And we're going to go ahead and drag it on. So no different than before. Get it where we want it. And then I just need to go into the on layout script triggers and customize those. Now, again, I've got another copy of starting point open where I'm going to cheat and I'm going to grab that configuration. But for all of you, go to that first script in virtual tabs and just copy it yourself and configure the tabs. Kristian, do trigger target panel is a variable to get the last tab? Do trigger target panel in a variable to get the last tab? Yes, I will show you that exactly in just a moment, David. That's a really good question. So we're going to go over here. I'm just going to disable their on layout enter for now, but you could just as easily put this in any on layout script that you have, okay? And so we're going to go over here. We're going to find VT, slide select, and I'm just going to paste in that function that we have. And again, you'll notice 4 tabs right there. This is just from the contacts standpoint. So I'm using the same fake tabs. That's why there's no delivery. So I only went to work order bundle. But you can see we've got the TO5 contact, TO5 contact versus TO1 accounts. We're going to say OK. We're going to say OK. We're going to go to on mode enter. We're going to do VT slide select. It's no different, or slide panel select. VT slide selected. And now we've got our second module configured. Now remember, it's going to say error. This is expected. But as soon as we leave the layout and come back, it won't. So that's just an artifact of when you very, very first install it. But again, here's where it starts to get really fun. This is why I wanted to do 2 modules. Let's go to contacts and contacts. Let's go back to account. It looks like we're still on estimate. Let's pop a new window. And we're on work order bundle, and I'll explain that in just a moment. Let's go to contacts, and let's take this one and put it on the, we'll put it on invoice, okay? Go back to accounts, still on work order bundle, come back over here, jump over to contacts, and you can see that it continues to maintain the context of where we're at. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this window, and I want to answer David Angel's question. I'm going to pause and I'm going to take a glance to see if anyone else has any other questions. So David Angel, you were asking, does it know on a panel trigger like where to go? So if you've ever seen Nick's technique or you've watched the slide panels, the basic functionality of all these things is generally the same, meaning you click on this button, it goes to a panel, it goes to object. That's all it is. And then when the panel changes, there's a script trigger that does some configuration. So how does it know what to do? Okay. And we're going to come over here. I'm going to delete my data viewer so it's not such a mess right now. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and open up this function. And I have something in here called VT JSON. And let's actually back up for just a moment. All of this stuff, all of my add-ons configure everything, if you guys recall yesterday, into a global variable. In the original version of virtual tabs, there was a variable per module. So you had per window. So if you went to accounts in window 1, you had a global variable. If you went to contacts in window 1, you had a variable. If you opened a new window and went to accounts and you got all these variables. And then what was also really difficult about this is it was never clearing the variables because you would lose your context. So you just ended up with basically a ton of memory being allocated. So now it all goes into a single variable, basically per user. And then what I do is all of my add-ons, even though there's a global variable, I just turn it into a custom function. And we'll talk about why I do that in a moment. So if we come over here, I've got this custom function VT JSON, which is literally just this function, this global variable. There's no difference, okay? And then if we do JSON format elements, so we can look at it in real terms or in a way that makes sense, we can start to see the JSON. And what I've done in this implementation is rather than a variable per module per window, again, there will be one variable, and then there is an object for each module that is indexed per window. So if we slide down here, I should have about 4 of these objects. There we go. So we've got layout accounts. We have 4 maximum tabs. That's the visible ones. The 7th tab is the last one all the way, if you will, to the right, or the last one in our count. So if we count these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 4 visible at a time, 7 maximum. Maybe those names could be reversed. And then down here, to answer David Angel's answer eventually, is the slide that we're on. So this piece of JSON gets updated to tell us what slide we're on. Now, when we hit the little arrows left and right, this adjustment value goes up. So one of these, I think we actually adjusted. There we go. This one's been adjusted 3 times to the right. So we're on the 7th panel. This number is always indicative of the actual panel that you're on, but this 3 helps do some logic in the displaying of what actually goes on there. And so when you go into find mode or browse mode, or where you enter the layout mode, what it does is it finds this variable. It says, hey, what layout am I on? And then what window am I on? And yesterday you saw that I have a custom function that I use to basically come up with a window number. So using the keys layout name, window number, I can then get the JSON object or JSON value that says, hey, go to the 2nd button or 2nd slide, or go to the 7th one, or go to, which one's this one on? The 5th one. So that's what's going on, and we get it all encoded into this single array right there. So I want to pause for just a moment. I don't know that there are any questions. Marks, if you have any, by all means, please interrupt me.
Beyond like the one from Mr. David Angel, and people sort of commenting on what you're doing, I don't see any questions. So. Okay,
perfect. David, can you maybe give me a thumbs up or not if that helps answer your question? That might not even been a question. Well, there's a question mark on there. I prefer a button bar for that. I guess we can use it with this object too. So I'm not sure if I exactly understand the comment. That's not a question from Lab, but this is a button bar, and these are slide panels below it. I see David Angel's response there. Thank you, David. It was really hard to find a solution that works well in all the situations. Yeah, Carlton, so slide tabs and virtual tabs use the same mechanism in terms of storing the JSON and saying where you go. And Calvin has asked me to tear this apart with him before and explain kind of how it works. And honestly, this came out of Kristian's mind working till like 3 in the morning, many nights in a row. Though I know kind of how it works, I put it in a black box and we just never touch it and hope that it continues to function. But the main idea here, how would you upgrade from a previous version of virtual tabs to the 2nd version? That's a really good question. The first thing I would actually ask you, Dennis, is, are you having issues with the first one? If you're not having issues with the first one, I would just continue to use it. The issues that I had were very specific to my customer on an iPad on a wide area network, where when you would change records or specifically go to a brand new record for just about a half a second, like I don't even know exactly how to measure it, where it says note or contact or estimate, you get a JSON syntax error, and then it would correct itself. And one of the nice things, honestly, about Virtual Tabs 1 is that it does go to PSOS and cache the data. So the customer, so that's why I didn't just like deprecate Virtual Tabs 1. I still think that that's a valuable product, if you will. Oops, that's good. I knew that those were going to come up on screen. Okay, so I still think that they have utility. I just have to see if my other customers have issues. For the customer that I had, as soon as we converted to Virtual Tabs 2, the issue that they started having is we go into products and vendors, and that very high count creates the same summary issue we had before. But surprisingly, everything else has been a bit faster. Outside of that, it's a little bit tricky to, it's not that hard, but it is tricky to explain. So the very main difference is in Virtual Tabs 1, the configuration that you send is a little bit different. So you need to look at that variable I have, and you'll notice that between 1 and 2, there's actually less stuff in it. The other thing that's going on, and you've all heard me mention this, and it's hard sometimes to get what's in my head out during a live stream. But part of the reason I like compiling all of the code into the custom functions is a very specific thing changed between 1 and 2. And honestly, Dennis, for my client that I switched from Virtual Tabs 1 to 2, they still have the multiple variables per layout, per window. I didn't convert them over on that. I think I left that alone. So That's where it's a little complicated. I realized to make a change with them, but then the product itself has different stuff going on. But what it is I added a function in here called object key. Okay, so object key is what the variable used to get named. It's get layout name, and then I've got a bracket here for get window number -1, because JSON, starts at an index of 0 versus 1. So this is I call it object key. Okay, and then the set variable change. So you'll come down here to where we've got, or up here, to where we've got set variable, and it's using a function or a custom function called variable name. Now this might seem weird. One custom function calls another, and some of these custom functions you're going to see they're extremely simple. So if we go over here to variable name, this is just get a $$ account name _tabs, because this will change per add-on that I have, and that's it. So the variable name is this, but then in all of the JSON that gets created, I've basically added this object key. So I'll show you guys under the hood. I'm fairly certain it's the configure or initialize. Really good question, and considering I mess with it, there we go. So build array and configuration. These are the two most complicated part of this that most of you, fortunately, should never have to look under the hood. And I wouldn't recommend doing it. But if we go into configuration here, you can kind of see where I made the big change. I'm pretty sure it was this one. Nope, this is the one I think that's deprecated. It's build array. Okay, so how the array gets built has changed. And again, most of you should never ever have to come in here, and I wouldn't recommend it. But up here, you'll notice that I've got this object key, and I'm calling the custom function. Now, why don't I just put the value of the custom function in here? Because it's literally just a static value. And the reason for that is this key gets referenced in a bunch of different places. And if you all recall yesterday, I mentioned that sometimes I just like to change the name of a key. And so it's nice that it's in a single place that you can change it. And what I basically do is take our object key and then put it in front of the other key. This is what allows there to be a single array that's indexed versus lots of arrays, and then that gets appended on there. So I saw that you were about to type Dennis and stop. My answer would be, if you really needed to convert from 1 to 2, my best answer would be like pay for an hour of coaching or something so I can show it to you. Because 1 and 2, they're not really made to be upgraded from the one to the other. And I know that's not necessarily the greatest answer to everybody. JSON everywhere. Yeah, I know that that's something that we like to joke around with quite a bit in the streams. And I'll tell you, even like 2-something years ago, JSON was over my head. I could use it enough for APIs, but the more and more I dive into it, and I know Kyle is one of the people that mentions this, it really opens the door up to a lot of things. I'd highly encourage people playing around with a little bit, because I'm not sure how else you could accomplish this in a portable and dynamic way. Like Nick's, I really like what Nick had. And it first came out in his Launchpad solution. I'm like, this is cool. You can have a button bar with slide panels. But after rebuilding that same thing in module after module after module, and he's only got a couple scripts and he's really done a good job, I'm like, there's got to be a dynamic way of just dumping this over. The other thing that's actually really neat about this that I'll just show you guys right now that works, if it's not in slide tabs, we're going to add it real soon, but it's definitely in virtual tabs, is this text right here. Okay, so I had a situation where a client we wanted or needed to change the way that the tabs are displayed. Well, the way Starting Point works and the way that Nix works, if you wanted to change that, you're going to have to go to every single module. You're going to have to go to every single tab and double click on it and make the changes. So even if you don't want to use virtual tabs or slide tabs, I'd recommend this one specific technique. Turn it into a custom function. So if we come over here and we double click on this calculation, you'll notice that we have, maybe on my other monitor, oops, where did that go? There we go. We've got a single custom function here being called virtual tab, okay? And go look at what virtual tab is. This is where most of this even kind of started from, to be honest. Virtual tab. There we go. So virtual tab, did I open the right one? 1 second. It is virtual tab. Why does it seem like not a lot's going on in there? Might be the one that actually gets encoded firsthand. JSON set element, set element. Okay, so it's not necessarily this one. It's actually when you guys are building the tabs, so I built this earlier in the year. I think it's, here we go. You don't have to have the two steps. You can just make this your one custom function. So this calculation here might look familiar if you guys are paying very close attention in the beginning of the stream. In fact, I'm just going to cancel this for one moment. I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to jump on over here. And if you look at these calculations, they're all identical except for this and this. In fact, this really should just have, you should just have a singular and plural option, and that's how you would know to put in there. And as you jump from tab to tab, they all do the same thing. But again, if you wanted to increase the size of something from a 13 to 14, because follow me, you got to go to every single place and do it. But if you just take all of this and make it a custom function and make these three things parameters, and then you decide one day that you want to change the color of your tabs or make the text bigger or make it smaller, there's this singular place to go and make all the changes. That's probably one of the best ways I can try to explain why I like to put all of the code into the custom functions. So not a great answer, Dennis, but basically I added a key in here, and then this key gets called all over the place. I think if we look at slide selected, it might be, no, it's not in there. It's going to be in active though. Active tab, I've added it in there somewhere. No, I won't see it there. In any event, that key gets called all over the place to figure out what piece of the array that you need to have. That's why I like having everything in here, because the custom functions are really nice that they can evaluate. So especially back when I needed to have variables by repetition, what I could do is just make a custom function that said, hey, I'm the variable, and then I'm the window number, which the repetition changes. So no matter when you call that custom function, you always get the value that you're looking for. So pretty much all of these custom functions do like one thing. In fact, if we double click on here, you'll notice for specify, there should probably be a custom function, BT button active. If we go over here and we want to see whether or not these are conditionally formatted, it should be a custom function. And again, what's nice about it is pretty much all of this stuff asks for something out of the JSON array. So if we come over here to tab button active, what it primarily wants to know is this one. Oh, let's go to this bad one. Slide minimum. Oh, come on. There we go. We'll slide adjustment. So right now I'm kind of coming up empty here for you. We'll go back to the slide selected. Pretty much all of these, this is what I was looking for. Pretty much all of these say, hey, I want an element out of the array. And then user position is just another custom function that basically encodes like the key that we're looking for. So it's just blocking everything up. And part of the reason I did that is in the original version of this in slide tabs, I would just have the calculation in every place, which was probably a little bit easier for people to follow and learn. The problem is anytime I wanted to change a name, I had to change it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different places. And then if I had a spelling error, which I don't know about any of you, but that is my absolute kryptonite. I have to go and find the specific spot that I did it. It just became a nightmare. One downside to JSON is it's case sensitive. So if you're like me and spelling errors are kind of your kryptonite, then you're going to find that with JSON, you got to be really cautious because now you got to make sure that it's case sensitive as well. This technique would be good for the navigation portal for Launchpad. Yes, that I've actually solved and made dynamic as well. It's not an add-on, and I can't necessarily present on it, but that's also one that is probably the coolest feature I ever saw that Nick added that I wanted, and I put it in all of my solutions. In fact, if you look at my launcher, I've got Nick's navigation on the left here. I really, really like it. But same thing, you're right, Stu, that basically, depending on what button you want to make active or if you want to make it formatted a certain way, compiling that code into custom functions is really nice. The other thing that I wouldn't be selling this on, but it is a true factor, is custom functions are faster than having all of these inline calculations. But for me, it's really just about consolidating the code. And I mentioned this yesterday, and it's 100% true. Outside of making these add-ons, I've actually started to use this framework for a lot of customers. So I know that we got to land the plane here shortly, and I did this yesterday, but I want to just briefly see if I can't try to explain the framework loosely, because I don't think that I do a great job of it. It's one of those things, like, I think that lives in my head a little bit, but if it's useful for other people, I'd love to try to get that out. And that is, if we go back to the custom functions, if you drag my add-on maker into an add-on, you'll get some of these base functions. And in all of these, I've got something that does like window number. And this basically, again, just attempts to count what window number you have open. And I've changed this. In fact, in this specific implementation, it looks like you can go back and see some of the failed or different attempts for it. Then I do something called variable name. And I like this because I'm going to reference this variable name in lots of different places. And so I could just remember exactly what I want. This is not complicated. But again, by putting into a custom function, if I ever decide for some reason I don't want this to say tabs, I want it to say virtual tabs, then I go and I change it in one place and all of my code everywhere is done. It simplifies the process of having to update or make changes to the code. And then one of the most important things is this set variable, which was courtesy of Carlton, which basically creates a dynamic variable name. And so I used to have one of the parameters be variable name. What I do now is I just use this per custom function. You guys can play with that however you'd like, and then I just stick a value in there. So this was really nice, especially when these had repetitions on it. Now is only one variable, so I probably could just make this a universal custom function, and you just stick a value in there, and then it says, hey, well, where am I gonna store this name? Well, I'm gonna store it in variable name, which is the other custom function. And then what I have is something called Json. It's pretty much in all of these. And Json basically says, hey, there's old stuff in here. There's stuff in here to support the old legacy code, but really all it is this evaluate variable name. So you have a variable name somewhere. You set things to that variable name, which is a custom function. And then you have another custom function that says, hey, evaluate whatever that variable name is, which gives you the JSON array, which is our JSON. And then you can build a whole series of custom functions or calculations that say, hey, I want this specific thing out of the array. The newest addition to this is this idea that we're going to index all of the different parts inside of the array rather than having different variables for the repetition name. One thing I'll throw out there, Kyle, if you're still listening, one thing I would absolutely love to add to this and all my add-ons, but I've actually gotten stuck on it, and I ran out of time to get it done before this release, is an on-layout exit. So we've got a lot of really talented people out there. Stu, I know that you actually sent us some really valuable feedback for Wolfpack, one of the original revisions. But the idea here is that when you it shouldn't be called on layout exit. It should be an on window close. So because we have this array that basically builds an object per module, per window, when a window closes, all of that data really should go away. And so I wrote a script called on exit layout, and I attempted to get rid of those pieces. And I will admit at this moment, it's got me stumped. One of those is to delete the JSON array. Excuse me, the JSON object. The problem with that is what I've found is it reindexes them, and my window numbers don't reindex. So that method didn't work. The next method was, let's just delete the object. Let's just put quote, quote, or empty. And again, I'm probably not the most proficient one at JSON. I would do that. It would eliminate the object, and then it would never let me repopulate the object. I might be able to solve this, but if anyone has any ideas, I'd love to see it. And why does that matter? There's two reasons. Don't save. Reason number one is that it's still taking up memory. Now, fortunately, text objects in the set variable probably are not that big of a deal. Yes, thank you. As I'm sure that was kind of on window close trigger would be where we would want it, but it's the calculation itself that's not working. So check out this little artifact that's kind of neat. I'm going to do a new window. So this is our second window, and I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to you actually can already see it. It's on work order bundle versus note, which it should be. Okay, so we'll go to note. I'm going to close the window. I'm going to reopen it. It's going to be on note, which is what I would honestly expect. But now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bump it over here and I'm going to put it on invoice. And I'm going to close that window. I'm going to reopen that window and it's going to be on invoice. And that's just because that's window 2. So anytime you open window 2 until you close a solution, it'll actually remember where you're at, which you might like. But window 2 isn't like, window 2 is just a coincidence, if you will. So if someone opens a new window, you'd expect the room to be back set to its normal state. And this is because the array doesn't actually get deleted. But watch, if I open window 3, then you'll see that it's on note. But I'm going to go to estimate. I'm going to close it. I'm going to reopen window 3. It's going to put me on estimate. If I close, and reopen, we're going to be on invoice. It's because it remembers that. So if someone can help me fix that, I'm more than happy to add that to it because I'll use it on all of mine. And the idea here being Rev 1, I don't know how much the memory issue is, that it's just creating all these things and never cleaning up after itself, but it's sloppy. So this one's cleaner, but it could still be more efficient. So I see that we have a Twitch question. Which add-on has the monkey bread search feature? I don't know what the monkey bread search feature is. I think that if someone's watching my screen, it's probably just monkey bread. So if you go into like the custom function area here and you go to edit something, it's actually really cool that Kristian added this. You can execute and check syntax. That's monkey bread. That's not an add-on. I know yesterday someone mentioned something about a search with monkey bread, so I just might not be aware of what it is. If you open the script workspace, we have a search up here. Also, again, just part of the monkey bread platform. So, Margaret, I don't know if you can get more information from Al, but I'm not sure what they mean by monkey bread's search feature.
Yeah, if we give like a minute 30 for like the Twitch delay, we should get some more info.
No worries. And then otherwise, I'm more or less ready to land the plane. I hope this is helpful to people. Chow, what was your first name again? Dennis, you can reach out to me and I could try to give you a better response on that. But I'd also be curious, Dennis, if you're using Virtual Tabs 1, please email support or myself and let me know if you've had any issues with it. I'm using it in a couple different files, and it's been fine in most places, other than the record mashing does have that delay. But it got rid of the slowness issue for the summarizing, so it's kind of give and take. The next 2 add-ons that I want to update are slide tabs. It just needs a slight makeover. I absolutely love that add-on. I use it all the time. And as you can tell, Calvin's been updating his. Calvin uses it. I don't want to speak for him, but I think he uses it a good amount too. It just needs a couple makeovers, like having a custom function for the display name. I thought it was doing that, but it's not. And then this new framework, so there'll be a single variable rather than lots of variables. So slide tabs, I'm going to eventually come back and do a re-release on. And then virtual menus, I'm actually, I ran into a couple different issues for my client using that. Again, iPad, wide area network. And so I've been working on an update to that. No ETA in either of those, especially the virtual menus. We're still doing some experimentation. But if you guys have feedback for any of these, things that don't work, things that work, or changes that you made, definitely reach out to us on that. And again, I hope this is helpful. I don't know, sometimes if I go through these, if some of the stuff that I'm saying makes sense or how clear it is. But I'd really encourage all of you to, it doesn't have to be everyone, but try to make a basic add-on. I know that we did the box one the other day. It might not even be that you make an add-on that you end up using, but the process itself of trying to figure out how to consolidate your code and make things dynamic, it's a really good exercise for improving yourself, I think, as an engineer. It's something that I would suggest. Much to learn you still have, all of us. So I think I see the runway in sight. Unless Twitch has something for us. What's that?
I think we're going to be good for them. Yeah, okay.
I'm done. I'm babbering now. Just thank you, everybody.
Okay,
and we'll be back tomorrow. We're done with Wolfpack. Tomorrow we'll be back with Wolf's Toolbox that I'll definitely have finished before the stream.
Okay, Al, yeah. Send an email to support and, like mentioned, Kristian, if you can remember a more specific analysis, because I think we're not quite sure what you're talking about. Otherwise, thank you, everyone. We greatly appreciate it. Kristian will be back. He will return. So, goodbye.
report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.